This video is brought to you by GIGABYTE AORUS' all-new range of cutting-edge high-performance gaming monitors. They're launching this month, and to celebrate, GIGABYTE AORUS are giving away this custom-built, skill-up-themed PC. Click the link below to enter the draw or stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers! Man, what an unexpectedly huge week we just had. Stellar Blade popped off, Manor Lords kind of broke the internet, and Fallout 4 kind of broke itself. Or more specifically, Bethesda broke it, but hey, what else is new? Me personally, I've been dumping a ton of hours into No Rest for the Wicked, and let me tell you, there's one very, very special video game. I released a video for that one yesterday, link below the like button, and yeah man, it just feels like a Hades level event almost, like an indie title that launches into early access and it just hits so right that you can almost feel you're playing a Game of the Year contender in the making. Really fantastic game, so much so that I was torn on whether or not to recommend it now versus wait till later. I landed on, check it out now. Enjoy the 20 or so hours that are there and then put it out of your mind until that 1.0 release. Even in early access, this is one of the best things I've played this year, and I see little reason to deprive yourself of that if you don't have to. Anyway, while I've been playing that, it seems like everyone else has been playing Fallout 4, or at least trying to. But Bethesda, man, Bethesda never changes. Haven't you heard? Fallout is cool again, thanks in large part to the Amazon Prime TV show, which has reignited interest in the franchise after it absolutely cratered with Fallout 76. We covered some of the numbers last week, but long story short, every man and his mum has reinstalled at least one version of Fallout this past couple of weeks, with the franchise hitting 5 million players in a single day across all platforms on one day last week. Absolutely huge. Fallout 4 in particular has seen a massive surge since it's the last mainline single-player moddable entry in the series. And when it comes to Fallout, or all Bethesda games really, people love them some mods. So you can imagine how excited the PC community was when Bethesda announced that they were releasing a next-gen console patch for Fallout 4, when they would also add things to the PC client, including, really badly implemented ultra-wide? But don't worry though, the good news is, all of your mods are broken too. It's really not an exaggeration, Bethesda did release a 14GB patch for the PC client that really only added a very wonky ultra-wide mode that clearly has not been properly implemented and causes weird UI scaling issues and glitches. It also has some Creation Club fixes, because everyone loves the Creation Club. Outside of that, it really does just break a huge number of mods that people were regularly reliant on. Bethesda said that they took care to minimize impact on mods, but they say that every time and it's never true. As a result, people are very unhappy. On Steam, the game slipped from very positive into mostly positive, with a visualization of recent reviews showing just how pissed off people are with the update. One of the most popular threads on mod site Nexus Mods is one detailing how to stop the game from updating, and you know you've struck gold with a patch when your community actively works to avoid it. As bad as they are on PC, they are much, much worse on Steam Deck. One of the most touted features of this update is that Fallout 4 was going to become officially Steam Deck verified. Bethesda confidently crowed about that, but in context it seems almost laughable that they did so. The update removed the Bethesda launcher from the PC client, and that was actually the only way that you could change graphical settings on Steam Deck. Now you literally cannot change your graphical settings when playing on Deck. They are decided by Todd, and that is it. That is basically unheard of when it comes to the Steam Deck, and kind of antithetical to the whole point of handheld PC gaming. Plus, there's a bug that literally halves your frame rate despite the game saying that you're running at twice the frame rate. So the Deck thinks it's running at 90 FPS, but actual frame data shows the game running at 45 FPS. There is a fix for this that involves going into the INI files, because that is what we do with Bethesda games. We go in and type things into the INI files to fix them, because Bethesda cannot be relied on to do that for us. Believe it or not, there's also an issue on console. Ironically, the issue is specific to Xbox, the console that owns Bethesda. One of the biggest features promised in this next-gen update was a performance mode that would deliver up to 60 FPS 4K resolution, and a quality mode that would also deliver 4K resolution, but lock in a floor of 30 FPS. The upside was meant to be some sort of ultra settings for the game to make it look better. Thomas Morgan of Digital Foundry noticed that it wasn't working properly and eventually isolated the issue to Xbox Series consoles. It turns out that only the performance mode works, and when you try to switch over to the quality mode, it just doesn't work. It says it does, but it stays on performance. Bethesda responded with a really confusing tweet that actually contradicts their own patch notes, and then they just didn't follow up with any new information. And so now no one actually knows what's going on and what Bethesda was shooting for with this quality mode. There is a minor issue on PlayStation as well, as Fallout 4 is currently available on the PS Plus Extra tier, but the next-gen client is not available to those subscribers. So they're stuck playing the PS4 version of the game. Bethesda says they're working on a solution and that they appreciate our patience. Man, if I had $1. I think the whole situation is neatly summed up by this meme doing the rounds this weekend. Drop update for 9-year-old game, add shit no one cares about, break every mod. Classic Todd. Todd actually did have some good news this week, and it was for Starfield. Todd made an appearance on the Kinda Funny show, and there Greg Miller hosted an in-depth interview that covered everything from the TV show to Fallout 76's recent resurgence to the current and future state of Starfield. It was there that Todd Howard confirmed that Starfield's first expansion, titled Shattered Space, will arrive sometime northern fall 2024, aka sometime between September and November. Todd didn't provide any more details on what that Shattered Space expansion would contain, but the fact that it's arriving only a year after the launch of the initial game leads me to suspect that much of the design thinking that went into it was probably either done or nearly done around the same time that Starfield shipped, since major expansions require plenty of dev time. In that sense, I wouldn't expect Shattered Space to be a response to the criticism that Starfield has received since launch. I think we need a more distant horizon for that sort of content. Still, there are targeted interventions that Bethesda are making as they go, and Starfield owners will get hold of some of them real soon, since there's a patch launching in the near future that will deliver a bunch of stuff, including new display modes on console, new shipbuilding features, city maps, making it much easier to get around town, as well as new gameplay options and additional surprises, whatever all that means. To their credit, Bethesda do stick with their games over the very long term, because their player bases do as well. So while Starfield didn't exactly ring people's bells at launch, there's every reason to expect that the game will improve substantially over the coming months and years. Bethesda was at one time the jewel in Xbox's crown, but that position was usurped last year when Microsoft completed their acquisition of Activision Blizzard King for a very nice $69 billion. The transaction was a big investment, one of the largest purchases in corporate history, and it shows just how seriously Microsoft takes the business of video games. It's paying dividends for them too, as a recent earnings call revealed that Xbox content and services revenue is up 62%. Pretty impressive, right? The only catch is that 61% of that came from Activision Blizzard King, so the Xbox brand itself only achieved organic growth of around 1%. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella seems unworried about the finer details, remarking in an interview, quote, "Earlier this month, we had 7 games among the top 25 of the PlayStation Store, more than any other publisher," end quote. Well, yeah, but that's what happens when you buy the world's largest video game publisher and put it under your banner. So, I don't know, that doesn't seem like that big a deal. Anyway, I think it's more telling about the overall health of the Xbox brand that the recent sales data for hardware figures indicates that year on year, console sales are down around 31%, and that follows a 30% year on year drop from the previous year. We've spoken a few times now about rumors of declining sales and third-party developers questioning the value of porting their releases to Xbox, and these sales figures certainly don't do anything to reset that narrative. Still, these numbers are to be expected when Microsoft keep telling us that their focus is on letting us play wherever we want, while also making their catalog of games available on PlayStation. Each new bit of data and each new utterance from Microsoft seems to reinforce the idea that Microsoft are less interested in the Xbox brand and more interested in a future as a multi-platform publisher, leveraging massive IPs like Call of Duty, Candy Crush, and Diablo. I mean, does anyone really think that Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be exclusive to Xbox at this point? I think that ship has well and truly sailed. And it's funny how much can change in just a few short months, because at the beginning of 2024, that sort of sentiment would have been unthinkable. Pivoting now to a game I don't often cover, Escape from Tarkov. I played a little bit of Tarkov when it first launched and thought to myself, nope, that is too much video game for me, thank you very much. Tarkov's focus on gritty realism, high-stakes extraction, and die-hard community make it a pretty intimidating game to step into, credited as the game that kickstarted the extraction boom while still maintaining a gigantic player base to this day. But you know, when I bought that game years ago, I actually did buy the Edge of Darkness edition, which promised me access to all future DLCs. It's actually the main reason that I bought that edition, since clearly this was a game with a promising future, lots of new content likely to be added, made sense to get in on the ground floor with a higher upfront cost but less total money spent over the life of the game. I was not the only person who made that value-based decision, which is why when developer Battlestate Games announced a new $250 version of Tarkov that includes new DLC and benefits that were not being provided to those who bought the Edge of Darkness edition, you can understand why the Tarkov community is in absolute revolt right now. It all started over the weekend when Battlestate uploaded a trailer for something called the Unheard Edition, a new package that costs $250 US. At a baseline, it includes a number of pay-to-win elements like new unique weapons, more flea market slots, increased starting level after server wipes, and most importantly, prioritized matchmaking, pushing you to the front of the queue while all those paupers who only paid $150 for their edition have to wait in line. All of this stuff is, of course, complete bullshit and has no place in a competitive game, let alone a premium, full-price product like Tarkov. The real kicker, though, is that the Unheard Edition would also contain a new single-player PvE game mode with its own progression, economy, and everything, and that mode would only ever be available to people that purchased the Unheard Edition. Those who purchased the Edge of Darkness Edition would never receive this new content. Now firstly, imagine adding a new game mode as important as single-player PvE and then paywalling that behind a $250 version of your game. That in itself is insanity. But then also imagine having the audacity to not provide that game mode to people who have already spent $150 on your game, predicated on the promise that they would receive all future DLC for free. Like, the absolute balls on these developers. When meeting the inevitable backlash of the decision, Battlestate retreated to semantics. See, a new game mode is not technically DLC, according to them. Quote, DLC means additional downloadable content. PvE is a feature and a game mode. Just because you all want it to become a DLC, it wouldn't mean it is one. It's featured game mode for the new addition to the game, end quote. Yes, a featured game mode is not a DLC. Ridiculous. What's next? Overwatch 2 goes free to play but still charges for its PvE content? Oh wait, they already did that. Anyway, point is, Battlestate just straight up scammed their players right here, including their most loyal and devoted customers, and that's exactly what the community has said, repeatedly. And I mean that literally, because right now, the community is spamming a copy-pasta phrase across all official channels and Discords that reads, quote, "For 8 years, we've been recommending this game to friends, bringing more and more players into the community, and what was the developers' response? They've blown us off, refused to comment, and only encourage those who have lost all respect for themselves and continue to pour money in. This cannot be tolerated," end quote. Personally, I prefer the Final Fantasy XIV free trial copy pasta. I think it has a little more zest, but different times call for different pasta. Battlestate have tried repeatedly and unsuccessfully to respond to the situation in ways that really make you yell, "Dig up, stupid!" The first was their semantic wordplay, which didn't do them any favors. Then they had the bright idea of giving Edge of Darkness owners some, but not all, of the promised perks, while also providing access to the PvE game mode, but only for 6 months. Have you ever heard of a video game giving you access to essential content for 6 months and then yanking it away after you'd already spent $150 on said game? Unbelievable. You can guess how that went down on Reddit. Over 6,500 comments on that thread with 0 upvotes. Those are some Star Wars Battlefront 2 numbers right there. This led to Battlestate offering another response, doubling down on their semantics argument, while also offering a standalone purchase option for the PvE DLC, with Edge of Darkness owners getting a 70% discount. They also committed to making changes to the pay-to-win perks on offer in the Unheard Edition, without committing to what those changes might be. Predictably, the community hated this too, and so Battlestate's COO offered a third and to this point final response, apologizing to the community while saying that they will provide Edge of Darkness Edition owners access to the PvE mode, but in waves to ensure server stability, and again reiterated that the pay-to-win stuff would remain but be balanced. In conclusion, they stuck to their guns about the semantics, didn't acknowledge any wrongdoing, offered a weak apology that was more like, "Sorry you feel this way," and they continue to offer pay-to-win benefits that actively disadvantage you unless you pay them $250 US. Not since the Unity debacle have I seen such wanton destruction of brand and credibility, but funnily enough, Battlestate went on the offensive at one point, tweeting about a game called Arena Breakout Infinite, another military sim extraction shooter that Battlestate feels is trying to eat their lunch or something. They tweeted out the following, quote, "Have a nice 20-minute adventure in the blatant plagiarist game, in and out," end quote. But Twitter pulled the old reverse Uno, dunking mercilessly on this out-of-touch tweet as evidence of how entitled Battlestate had become. The tweet now has over 4.3 million impressions, so you got to imagine that Arena Breakout Infinite are pretty appreciative of the free marketing. Hell, even Helldivers 2 got in on the action. Over the weekend, they tweeted out a mocked-up image of an item bundle containing cosmetics featuring extra pocket size and extra stims. It sells for 250 super credits, a price so low that Arrowhead Games describes it as unheard of. Well played, Arrowhead, always at the absolute top of their Twitter game. A quick lightning round to finish off, but sticking with a similar theme for a bit longer, Frontier have just announced that they're adding paid ships to Elite Dangerous. A future update will see new ships added to the game that can be purchased with real money, but 2 months later those same ships will be available to earn free with in-game currency. The move has been met with a lot of indifference from the core community, many of whom seem okay with the idea of handing over money for early access to spaceships. I guess this is how Star Citizen managed to crowdfund over $500 million. One community that's not okay with encroaching monetization is the Tekken community. The game launched free of in-game spending, but a post-review patch added an in-game cash shop allowing you to purchase various cosmetics. This is in addition to Tekken 8 being the first in the series to feature a battle pass, and one with a premium track at that. As a result, players have voiced their dissatisfaction in one of the few ways they can, Steam reviews. The title has just this week fallen to mostly negative on Steam, with just 34% of recent reviews being positive and almost every negative review calling out the monetization, which people claim feels like a bait and switch. And yeah, it kind of is that, because if you add a post-launch patch without foreshadowing it, people are naturally going to feel pretty duped. Tekken boss Harada-san has defended the move, saying that Tekken 8 was roughly 3 times as expensive to make as Tekken 7 was. Bandai Namco made roughly $2.8 billion in profit last year. Always keep that in mind when developers and publishers tell you that they simply must raise the price on something. Speaking of billions, Meta continues to lose them. A lot of them. Meta, aka Facebook, released their Q1 earnings this past week, and their Meta Reality Labs VR business is still burning through cash like it's going out of style. $3.8 billion lost in 1 quarter, only a slight improvement versus the same time last year where they lost $4 billion in a quarter. Revenue was up 30% owing to strong MetaQuest 3 headset sales, but you're going to have to sell a hell of a lot of headsets to make up for the projected $16 billion loss this financial year alone. Zuck continues to barrel toward a VR future that we clearly don't want or just aren't ready for yet, with absolutely no sign of changing course anytime soon. Blizzard is recruiting for an unannounced title. Their jobs page has listings for 6 roles, including senior positions like creative and narrative director. Could be another mobile title spin-off designed to rake in millions of dollars through predatory microtransactions, sure, but it also could be Overwatch 3. I don't know which is worse, to be honest. Sticking with unannounced projects for a little while longer, it turns out Bloober Team, makers of the Medium and Layers of Fear, are working on 2 things still under wraps. The first is something currently referred to as Project C, which is being published by Take-Two's AA label, Private Division. It's an original IP, and it's apparently fairly progressed in its development. The other thing they've got cooking is something currently codenamed Project R, which is in partnership with Skybound. Skybound have a number of different products under their banner, including The Walking Dead and Invincible, so this really could be anything, but given that Bloober Team make horror stuff, then something to do with The Walking Dead does feel like a pretty safe bet. No further details on this yet, but apparently we'll hear more in 2025. More segues for you. Man, we're really daisy-chaining these stories together today. Bloober Team's horror resume is a little patchy, but not so for Shinji Mikami, creator of the Resident Evil and Evil Within franchises. He left Capcom to start his own studio a while back. That was Tango Works, of course. He left that last year, and now we know why. This story comes courtesy of Automaton, who translated a YouTube video where Mikami revealed that after selling his stake in Tango Works to Bethesda, he wanted to create an environment that allowed younger developers to have opportunities to gain experience. That's why he set up a new outfit called iCUE, but he's tight-lipped about what his new studio's first project might be. It almost certainly will not be a survival horror though, as in that same interview, Mikami said that he wants to break free of his association with the survival horror genre. That's part of the reason that Ghostwire Tokyo was more of an action game than a horror game, and why Hi-Fi Rush was, well, Hi-Fi Rush. Big loss to the survival horror genre to see this man hang up his spurs, but if that's what he wants to do, then fair play to him. Excited to see what he and his team serve up next. Sadly, there were some layoffs this week, same as every other week this year. A group of ex-Lionhead developers got together to form Flaming Fowl. They'd previously shipped the moderately successful Gloomhaven, and then got to work on a new strategy deck builder called Ironmarked. They had a demo out for it and everything, but that wasn't enough to keep momentum, and the publisher dropped the game mid last year. Fundraising efforts after that were unsuccessful, and now the team has been cut from 30 people down to 9. Unclear what the future holds for those remaining. In addition, Teases, who just shipped the Alone in the Dark reboot, also suffered layoffs this week. It was an unconfirmed number with no statement from the studio or publisher, THQ Nordic. Alone in the Dark has less than 1,000 reviews on Steam, so you get the sense that it didn't sell gangbusters. I wouldn't be holding my breath for a sequel. Some quick sales numbers to smash through. The solo-made Manor Lords is a massive smash hit, with over 1 million copies sold on day 1 and a peak concurrent player count of over 170,000 people on Steam. Apparently, that's the highest ever for a city builder or strategy game. Absolutely insane. And that's putting aside the fact that this game is also on PC Game Pass, which is no doubt where a boatload of people are checking it out. Truly phenomenal success for developer Slavic Magic. Congratulations and best of luck with the post-launch support. Capcom is having a very good year, raising their yearly sales forecast by nearly 9% owing to the exceptional success of both Dragon's Dogma 2 and Street Fighter 6. Crazy, isn't it? Make good games, make profit. Though to be fair, I know a lot of people have issues with Dragon's Dogma 2, myself included, but it's still a great game. Sort of. It's complicated. Check the review. Indie shoals like Another Crab's Treasure has sold 30,000 units in its first day. Congratulations to the boys on that one. Frostpunk just passed 5 million players since it launched 6 years ago. A great figure as they head into the launch of Frostpunk 2 very soon. And Deep Rock Galactic Survivor just passed the 1 million units mark, proving that that franchise has very long legs, even if its stars do not. And finally, a sad day for IP appropriation. Nintendo's lawyers have finally turned their Sauron-like gaze to Garry's mod, issuing a DMCA takedown takedown request on any and all Nintendo content that features in the game. The man himself, Garry, was pretty chill about it. Quote, "Honestly, this is fair enough. This is Nintendo's content, and what they allow and don't allow is up to them. They don't want you playing with this stuff in Garry's mod. That's their decision. We have to respect that and take down as much as we can. This is an ongoing process as we have 20 years of uploads to go through. If you want to help us by deleting your Nintendo-related uploads and never uploading them again, that would help us a lot," end quote. I mean, he's right, but at the same time, it definitely sucks. It's not like anyone is not buying Mario Wonder because they're getting their Mario fix from Garry's mod. Unless I'm wrong about that, in which case please link the mod below as I'd love to check it out before it gets deleted. So what got announced or delayed this week? Well, VR fans, I always love being able to bring you some good news, so here comes a little. You're getting a new Alien game. It's called Alien Rogue Incursion, and it's a single-player horror title. Highly likely it'll draw inspiration from Alien Isolation, since Creative Assembly didn't leave other studios many places to go after how good that was. It's a self-published title from developer Survivos. It's out toward the back end of this year and it's dropping on all VR platforms. If you were one of the people that played the wildly innovative Before Your Eyes, then no doubt you're going to be very interested to learn about the next game from the same studio. Nice Dream Games are working on something called Goodnight Universe, a game where you play as a 6-month-old baby with psychic abilities. You just want to be loved by your family, but an evil megacorp wants to do experiments on you. Like their previous games, this one will also use a webcam with face tracking. It'll debut at the Tribeca Games Festival very soon. No word on a release date yet. Pine, A Story of Loss is a game about a woodcutter dealing with the death of his wife. Sure, God of War did it first, and before that, Wolverine, if you really think about it, but there's always more room for stories about grieving lumberjacks. This one's just been announced for PC, Switch, and mobile, but not for PlayStation or Xbox, which is kind of weird. Speaking of Xbox, they held an ID at Xbox showcase this week, and they had a few things to showcase. Like Centrum, for example, a very odd-looking narrative point-and-click that's deliberately designed to mess with your head. The trailer alone was successful, so I don't think the full release will struggle either. We've seen rhythm dungeon crawlers, rhythm shooters, now say hello to rhythm JRPGs. This is Keylocker, and it's heavily inspired by the Mario and Luigi RPG games, but this one's in a cyberpunk setting. It's set to launch for PC and Xbox sometime later this year. The last big one to keep an eye out for from that showcase was Promise Mascot Agency. It's from the same people that brought us Paradise Killer, a real critical darling, that one. Apparently this one involves recruiting and training mascots in Japan, helping them with their jobs while also solving a Yakuza mystery. Okay then, no date for this one, but it's out in 2025. A few quick port announcements. Slime Rancher 2 is still in early access and was exclusive to both the PC and Xbox. On June 7th, it will arrive on PS5, but it will stay in early access, which is highly unusual for PlayStation since they typically don't allow that. I wonder if they're rethinking that policy over at Sony HQ. Lisfunga, the Time Shift Warrior, is a time-bending puzzle action game that got solid reviews when it launched onto PC earlier this year. On May 14th, it'll arrive for the Switch, which is a great fit for a game like that. One update announcement is Everspace 2. It just got a big free update, which includes stuff like new ship parts, new story tidbits, but most importantly, it moves the game to Unreal Engine 5, which the developers say future-proofs the game. They've obviously got big long-term plans for the game if they're making a move like that after the game has already released, so stay tuned for more from developer Rockfish Games, I guess. 2 cancellations this week. The first comes from People Can Fly, makers of Outriders. They haven't had much luck lately. They were working on something called Project Dagger. It was a new action-adventure IP that Take-Two funded for 3.5 years before Take-Two eventually pulled their funding, allowing People Can Fly to retain the rights. Project labored on for another year, but this week People Can Fly pulled the plug themselves, citing, quote, unsatisfactory results of the evaluation of the scope and commercial potential of the project after redefining the direction of the game's development, end quote. The studio is still working on 3 other projects, 2 of them internally funded, and a third one in partnership with Microsoft. Maybe something with Gears of War? I don't know. I can definitely see that studio making a pretty cool Gears of War game. The other cancellation wasn't a game, but was instead an event. BlizzCon has basically been an annual event since it began, stopping of course for the pandemic, but it did come back last year. This year, however, Blizzard have confirmed that BlizzCon will not happen, saying, quote, while we're approaching this year differently and as we have explored different event formats in the past, rest assured that we are just as excited as ever to bring BlizzCon back in future years, end quote. Let's hope that BlizzCon doesn't follow E3 to that big convention hall in the sky. So what came out last week? Well, another Crab's Treasure arrived for all platforms. This one is more than just a meme game, as solid reviews point to a title that takes its fundamentals seriously, even while it's smirking at everything else. The punters really love it. It's sitting at a very positive 93% on Steam, though critics are a little more critical. putting it at a strong 78 on OpenCritic. PC Gamer scored this one an 80, saying, quote, "Another Crab's Treasure is a joke game that takes being a great Souls-like seriously. It's a charming, creative platformer with terrific combat and a good eye for both pretty scenery and silly sight gags," end quote. Unlikely to shock you this one, but if you're in for a relaxed romp through the sands between, then don't forget you can grab this one on Game Pass. Saga Emerald Beyond arrived this week for PlayStation, PC, Switch, and mobile, but not Xbox. It's the latest in the long-running JRPG franchise that's always been focused on story and decision-making. It's landed fairly well, a strong 74 on OpenCritic. Silicon Era scored it a 7 out of 10, saying, quote, "This is a JRPG that feels nothing at all like any other game I've played, including past entries in the series. It's because of this that it feels like such a novelty, like a Saturday morning cartoon. There's a ton of variation to it and pretty speedy pacing, but that also means nothing quite lands as well as it could," end quote. Sandland released on all platforms bar the Switch last week. This one was interesting because it arrived at the same time as a TV show and a movie that were looking to tell the same story in slightly different ways. Edmond actually played this one prior to release and got the feeling that the game might be the worst way to experience the story, and the final reviews kind of back that up. It's by no means a bad game, it's sitting at a fair 73 on OpenCritic, but more than a few reviews do point to the fact that the game isn't doing the inspiration justice, like IGN's review that scored it a 6 out of 10, saying, quote, "Sandland suffers the same fate we've seen in many other game adaptations of anime and manga, competent in several respects with a few moments of brilliance, but for the most part, a simply okay adventure that can only occasionally capture what makes the source material special," end quote. Stellar Blade dropped last week as well. God, that feels like so much longer ago, doesn't it? But yes, it was last week. My review went up on the channel. Link below the like button. As I said last week, I definitely enjoyed this one, but it really only clicked for me in that final stretch. Before that, I was a bit too hung up on how much the game wanted to imitate aspects of Nier Automata, but I do admit that my reaction to all of that was a lot more pronounced than that of most other people. Broadly speaking, the title has done super well with critics. It's sitting at a strong 82 on OpenCritic, which is a fantastic result for a studio who have never made a game like this before, or at a scale like this before. GameSpot had a more optimistic spin on the sentiment I experienced, scoring it an 8 out of 10 and saying, quote, "Does this game rise to the heights its inspirers achieved? The conclusion I came to is no, but that it attempts so without falling on its face is remarkable enough. That it manages to be a great game in that pursuit is a true testament to the power of being galvanized by those that came before," end quote. Well said, I think. That's a nice way to look at it. And finally, Manor Lords arrived into early access on PC. No reviews for this one yet, given that it's an early access launch, but everyone loves it. I mean, we spoke about the sales numbers early, over 1 million units on day one, and the highest concurrent player count of any city builder or strategy game ever. On Steam, it sits at a very positive 88% with over 20,000 reviews counted. Pretty safe purchase this one, and even safer if you want to grab it on PC Game Pass, because don't forget it's there too. So what's coming out this week? Well, it certainly is a very quiet week, but there are some interesting indie titles to have on your radar, like Surmount, for example. It's a physics-based co-op climbing game, so if Jusant left you hungry for more, albeit silly climbing action, then this one arrives today exclusive to PC. At the complete other end of the spectrum is a game called Indica. It's an absolutely batshit insane looking third-person narrative adventure game where you play as a Russian nun on a journey of self-discovery. The nun has weird, messed up visions and hangs out with the devil at one point. I've never seen a game that looks quite like this, and I'm always excited to meet something that feels genuinely new. This one's exclusive to PC, and it arrives today. Endless Luminous arrives to the Nintendo Switch today as well. It's the third game in Nintendo's chill underwater diving series that's focused on exploration and vibes. This one actually supports up to 30 players at once, allowing you and your mates, or just even random people, to glide through the water, soaking up the sights while solving an underwater mystery. Sounds like a good time. And finally, V Rising launches into 1.0 this week. On the 8th, the game will exit the early access period it kicked off last year. I reviewed it back then actually, and absolutely love what I played of it. Even though it was just in early access, since then it's received dozens of major and minor updates that add everything from 2-story buildings to Castlevania crossovers. This is a survival game, but it's definitely on the more accessible end of the spectrum, since the game is less focused on endless material grinding and more focused on really tight isometric combat, something Stunlock has plenty of experience in, since this is the studio that brought us Battle Right. This is exclusive to PC for the moment, but there is a PS5 port slated for later this year, no date yet. No word on an Xbox port either, so we'll see if that ever materializes. One more indie to shout out this week, so put this on your radar. You guys remember Gris? I sure do. To this day, it remains one of my favorite indies. Its stunning art and dreamy soundtracks searing themselves into my memory. True story, to this day, the Gris soundtrack is still one of my most listened to gaming soundtracks. It's from Berlinist, it's incredible. Anyway, point of this whole story is that the people who made Gris, this is what they're making next. It's called Neva, and it's the story of a girl and her wolf who come together at the beginning of their adventure and form a bond that sees them push through all manner of peril. It has the same simple but beautiful art design that the first game did, and Berlinist have even returned for the OST, so I'm all in. There's no date for this one yet, but it is slated for 2024, and if you'd like to check it out or maybe even wishlist it, I've left a link to it over on my Steam Curator page, which also has links to all of the other put this on your radar stuff I've recently covered. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. Sort of free stuff time now, and there's not a lot going on, despite it being the beginning of the month. That's because I'm writing the script just a few hours before many of the May announcements will be made for stuff like PS Plus or Prime Gaming, so there will be more to discuss next week, but for now, we've got Epic, as per usual. At the moment, they're giving away horror platformer package Lisa, the Painful Definitive Edition, as well as Industria, a fairly lightweight but accomplished shooter that's quite reminiscent of Half-Life 2. Those will be replaced later this week by Orcs Must Die 3, a tower defense game that was initially released as a Stadia exclusive but was later ported to other platforms. It's meant to be a pretty good time. Only other shout is for something called Dr. Robotnik's Ring Races. While we wait for Nightmare Kart releasing at the end of the month, tide yourself over with this fan-made game that imagines what it would have been like for Sega to make a kart racer during the Mega Drive era. Incredible presentation for a game that should not legally exist, but Sega seem to be cool with it for the moment, so let's hope they stay cool. Best of all, this thing is free. Just Google Dr. Robotnik's Ring Races and you can download it for free from their site. I love stuff like this. God bless the internet, and God bless you Sega lawyers for not doing what Nintendo do. Speaking of Sega, it's time for our feel-good story for the week, and believe me, it's a banger. Brands will often try to be cute on social media, posting up about this or that because it's what all the cool kids are doing. Well, for whatever reason, the Google Play Community Manager, or more likely the AI bot that staffs the Google Play Twitter handle, decided to show some love to Sonic the Hedgehog this week, and to do that, they spun up a Twitter thread where in every post, Sonic gets older and older. The only problem is that this AI, because I have to assume it's AI, has no concept of time, chronological ordering, accuracy, or fact-checking, as every single post in their chain was so wrong that it earned a community note. And by that I mean that every single post in this thread got noted. The first post said, quote, 1991 Sonic, the cover, rotund, husky, still fast as lightning. The actual game, 8-bit glory, end quote. Nice quips, well written AI, just a shame that Sonic was never an 8-bit game, he arrived in the 16-bit era, and the screenshot shown also features Tails, who didn't arrive until 1992. The next post reads, quote, 1993 Sonic, okay short king, end quote. Look at this picture, by the way. Even if you're not a Sonic fan, does this look like 1993 Sonic to you? No, and there's a good reason for that. It's actually Sonic as he appears in Sonic Boom in 2014, 21 years later than what this Google AI bot is fighting out. It goes on and on like this, so many posts, each of them totally incorrect in a variety of ways, each of them mercilessly community noted. The thread was so bad that it went viral, capturing the attention of Sonic himself, who responded, quote, what are you doing? End quote. What indeed, Sonic? What indeed? Man, what a way to finish the show. I hope you enjoyed that one, just as I hope you enjoyed the whole kit and caboodle this week. If you did, then you know what to do. Slap that like button like it's a community note upvote on a bad social media post. And if you'd like to come back, then be sure to subscribe, since we do this each and every week, and we have a good time while doing it. We're going to go dark for a little bit, since we're working on some reviews that we can't talk about just yet, but we are very excited to be giving away a whole ass PC, thanks to GIGABYTE. If you're in Australia or New Zealand and would like to be in the running for that one, then be sure to stick around. Otherwise, a big thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you next week. Alright, time for a very exciting giveaway from this video's sponsor, GIGABYTE AORUS. They've worked with their resident in-house PC builder, Simple Mods, to create this custom-built, skill-up themed PC, and they are giving it away to one lucky winner. The reason they're doing this is because, one, they like giving away PCs, it makes them happy, and secondly, they've got reason to celebrate, because this month, GIGABYTE AORUS are launching their new lineup of QD OLED monitors, each of them pushing new frontiers in terms of resolutions, refresh rates, response times, and connection types that get you ready for the upcoming generation of GPUs. There are 3 offerings within AORUS's new lineup. If 1440p gaming is your go-to, then you're going to want to check out the FO27Q3, a 27-inch 1440p QD OLED monitor that supports up to 360Hz refresh rate and just 0.03 milliseconds response time. Plus, it has support for HDMI 2.1, meaning you can use it with the PS5 or Xbox Series consoles for higher refresh rates. If you're into more immersive experiences, have you considered a super ultra wide option? The AORUS CO49DQ is a QD OLED monitor that is essentially two 16:9 monitors in one, giving you unprecedented field of view in games where you just want to soak up the world, or even in stuff like racing games or flight simulators where you want to recreate that feeling of being in the cockpit or the driver's seat. The monitor that I personally chose out of this new lineup is this one, the FO32U2P. It is a 32-inch QD OLED monitor that supports 4K resolution, 240Hz refresh rate, and a 0.03 milliseconds response time. Most important to me, though, is the fact that it's one of the first monitors on the market to support DisplayPort 2.1, which is going to be the standard connection type for the next generation of GPUs, rumored to be arriving later this year. That new connection type not only allows you to daisy chain monitors together, but also lets you hit 4K 240Hz refresh rates without using any sort of display stream compression. It's really nice to have a piece of kit that's not only top of the line right now, but also future-proof. That's why I'm very excited to have this monitor as part of my setup. But not as excited as you would be if you won this custom-built skill-up PC. It's sporting a GIGABYTE GeForce RTX 4080 Super, meaning you can pump those settings up and enjoy top-end performance on pretty much anything you throw at it. It features an Intel Core i7, and the cooling, RAM, storage, case, and power supply were all generously provided by Corsair. Big shout out to them for helping us out on this one. Finally, it's all built by Simple Mods, Gigabyte's in-house PC builder, who also has his own YouTube channel. He creates some insane stuff over there, so be sure to check it out. I'll leave a link to his build video below the like button. The other link I will leave is the one that lets you enter this giveaway. It's only open to those living in Australia and New Zealand, so if that's you, then click the link below to enter. And if you'd like to check out Gigabyte AORUS's new range of monitors, I'll leave some links to those as well. Thanks Gigabyte AORUS for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.